what is the final message? What's your vision? What would be that vision? What would you tell that voter? Welcome to a special edition of Campus Connections, where I have the privilege of sharing my conversations with two distinguished student leaders vying for the role of Student Government President, Joseph Liberto and John Sweat. In this episode, you'll get an exclusive look into the minds and visions of these candidates as I sit down with each of them individually to explore their journeys, ideals, and plans for our LSU community. My aim with these interviews was to engage in a non-biased discussion that, if done correctly, would allow every student to feel as though they've had a personal 30-minute conversation with each candidate, a conversation that reveals the heart and the mind of the individuals striving to become our next student body president. I strongly encourage you to watch the full video featuring both candidates. I hope you take the time to learn about both Joseph and John so that you can cast your ballot with confidence. These interviews present a unique opportunity to compare their perspectives side by side, helping you, each LSU student, make an informed decision about who you want leading our student body into the future. Approach these discussions with an open mind as we peel back the slogans and banners to truly understand who these candidates are, what their experiences have taught them about leadership, and what future they hope to achieve for each of us and for the generations of students who will inevitably follow us. Both candidates bring to the table vastly different experiences, initiatives, yet they share a common goal: to serve you, the student body. In a world where direct conversations between students and their potential leaders are rare, these interviews aim to bridge a gap, offering every student the chance to engage with the candidates on a level our campus has not received in many years. The future of our university lies in the hands of every student who casts a vote this Thursday and Friday, March 21st through 22nd. The future of LSU lies with you. And with that preface, it is my pleasure to present these discussions with Joseph Liberto and John Sweat. Liberto, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Colin, this is great, man. It's been really cool just meeting everybody that I've heard so many great things about.
Yeah. Do you want to start? I mean, I could give a full introduction, and I probably will, before this, we'll, introduce both of the people in the before the interview, but, do you want to just give an introduction of who you are, what you come, where you come from, everything like that?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'm Joseph Liberto. I'm a sophomore at LSU. I'm an international trade and finance major. I'm also in Kappa Sig, where I'm philanthropy chair, I was Brotherhood director. In New Orleans, I'm on a nonprofit executive board where I feed it's called Hamster Fams. I feed 250 local needy families a Christmas meal. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. So you say you're originally from New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
So went to high school in New Orleans, everything like that?
I went to Jesuit High in New Orleans.
Cool.
My dad went there. My grandfather went there. I love Jesuit.
Was it always your plan to come to LSU?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I was a Tulane fan when I was younger.
Okay.
But, I mean, you just can't beat LSU. You just can't beat LSU, man. There's so many opportunities to thrive here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. And we'll forgive the Tulane affinity. I think we have a lot of people here that are the Tulane affiliates. So you've been in multiple leadership roles. I know, so the debate was happening yesterday, and one of the things they kind of tried to highlight in the debate was that one campaign has a lot of SG experience and one campaign doesn't. While you might have SG experience, can you just take us through some of the leadership roles you've had and just some of the main lessons you've learned from that?
Yeah. So I think, before college, I was student body president of my high school, which, is totally different scale, and you can't even compare them, really. But, leadership's always going to be leadership. And I think the main thing I learned there is just delegate. Delegation is huge because, I put a lot of that stress on myself, and I just, I could feel the effects of it. I feel like I aged, 10 years being president. But, I've definitely came out a better person from that experience. It's just delegating. And I think another thing is, especially in this experience, is just shoot high, Shoot high. And I think that's a lesson my dad taught me as well, is that, if you shoot high, aim for the moon, aim for the stars, you end up in the moon. That's the old saying. And that's so true. Before this, I was, fraternity guy. I was, around campus. I tried to get my name out there. But now, people are gonna really hear, Liberto Carmen. They're gonna hear that, passing by me every day. It's just kind of cool. This has been such an amazing experience. I just feel so blessed that I'm able to get my message out there. And that not only is it out there, but people are receiving it, and they're receiving it well. I've got people that really support what I'm doing, and I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, no doubt. As someone that's been in that scene, as someone that's run for stuff like that, I mean, for the rest of your collegiate experience, you're going to get people, hey, are you the guy from the thing that like we heard about a while ago? Or, you know, oh, yeah, we saw a giant sign with your name on it. What was that about? You're like, oh, I wish you would have just known during the election.
A few months late.
Yeah, and, you know, that brings into, you know, most people run for student body president as like juniors going into their senior year. I think the last student body president we had that wasn't like graduating the year that was Stone Cox when he won. What motivated you to run like this year?
I think it was just the idea that, you know, kind of what we're doing here is just like we need fresh faces here from everything that I've heard. We just need the fresh face, the new perspectives. And I mean, like some of the ideas that we have, I don't think people that are so like in the tasks of student government, you know, like just kind of head down doing the student government stuff, they might not see the bigger picture. And I think that's what kind of we got the big picture ideas that kind of, you know, come through with some of our policies. Yeah.
So, what are some of those ideas that you think are being missed currently in student government that that you see room for improvement?
I think my big thing, this is my favorite policy, is Ask Energize. Or right now it's Ask Energize.
Yeah.
You know, it'll move into LSU as you know, if we win. But Ask Energize, because it would just be kind of like a hot link, you know, like almost like a Google form. That was the original idea, a Google form. But hopefully it gets used enough that a Google form would just be too much. But like a hot link, and it just says questions, comments, and suggestions. And then on there, you know, a student from their couch could just type in, you know, why don't we do X, Y, and Z? And then it'll leave a spot for their name, number, and email. And we can get back to them on like why that idea is a really good idea. You know, we really want to get that done, but X, Y, and Z is in the way. And like, you know, what we can do to tackle that problem while we do that. Or, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's just an idea that one might not see, you know, being in student government.
So I know, that was mentioned the other night at the debate, and the main thing that I thought of when I heard that is how do you think that the Ask Energize like portal is going to be different than like the current student government email or like those means of getting connected?
I think maybe it would just be promoted better. I mean, we would have it like on the website as like an actual thing, you know, like because I got the idea honestly from Auburn. You know, I was doing my research and I was looking around. They have maybe like Auburn Asks or something like that, and I was like, you know, that's perfect. I think that's a real cool idea that like, you know, like it maybe isn't promoted enough here, but I think that,
that seems to be a thread that we've heard before, but it's always important is promotion. Right? Of
marketing.
Yeah, marketing, and there's all these tools of student government. There's all these things that people have worked on, but somehow it falls through the cracks and it doesn't get out to students. What are some of the things that, you know, so there's the Ask Energize portal, but especially on the promotional side, you know, like Exec has their, you know, Department of Marketing and things like that. What are some of y'all's plans to really make sure that you're getting that message and those tools out to every student?
Yeah, definitely. I think what they do now is they do great with marketing, like their programming and stuff like that. I think LSU does a great job marketing the program. I think the program is really well done and it's really necessary. I mean, you know, giving students something to do is huge. But I think something that we can improve on in marketing is just like the assets that student government has. Like, I mean, you know, one thing you'll probably hear a bunch about is PSIF funding. Yeah. And I mean, you know, like the money is there for the organizations. It really is. Yeah. And me and Amelia really, like, we want the organizations to be able to use it, like, as long as it's, of course, you know, within reason and within, like, a good cause. But, you know, we want the organizations to know that. Like, you know, ROTC, if they want to have a ball or, like, a party, you know, like just a good get-together, I think they deserve to have that. They work really hard. It's a big organization. You know, I think that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, that's something that I know over my time I've seen progress on, but there's always room to get better. I know, like, 2 years ago, I sat on the PSIF committee, and it was a good week when we had 4 applications come through.
Yeah, that's great.
And, you know, recently we've had multiple meetings with 6, 7 applications come through, but, I mean, honestly, with as many we have almost 500 student organizations on this campus. You know, I think ideally PSIF would have, you know, 10 people coming.
Yeah,
and so, you know, there's always room for growth there. And I know just in Free Speech Alley today, there was a student organization that I talked to about, you know, getting funding. And I was like, hey, do you know about PSIF? And they're like a pretty big student org. And they were like, no. Like, give me the information. Let's apply to this thing. And, you know, I definitely think that that's an area where there's always room to grow in getting out the message, however we choose to do that. So is that primarily like a social media campaign, or are there other ways that you all try to get out the message of the tools of student government?
Yeah, I think, I mean, social media is always there. Social media is a great tool, but also just person to person, you know, telling the organization leader and let it flow down through the cracks. You know, I mean, like, start at the top and let it go down. Because, I mean, you know, we can go to, like, you know, all these big organizations and start with, like, the presidents and then let it go down that way, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going to club leaders.
Yeah, going to club leaders. Yeah, that's a good way to explain that.
Yeah, no doubt. And so that actually bleeds into you're talking about doing this and something, I'll admit I've been in SG for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I've seen 5 student body presidents come and go. And one consistent thing is that they always have these push cards, like both the campaigns do this year. And they list all these initiatives, right? And their time comes and goes, and if they have 10 initiatives, they maybe made progress on one that was, already happening or something like that. Yeah. It's rare to see a campaign come through and actually say, we're going to do this and get it done. Mm-hmm. What do you think, why are some of the reasons why you think in the past people have kind of made those promises that hasn't happened? And how do you think that y'all are going to be better fit to actually follow through on the promises that you're making to the student body?
That's a great question. I mean, and that's a fair point as well. Like in 5th grade, they ask, I'll have a pizza party every Friday. That's not happening. Right. But no, I think that what separates us from those is the fact that, we said it in the debate, and I think it's a valid and a strong point. We're not really running to be student government president. Like, we'll work on that as, with, of course, wholeheartedly. But we're really here for the students. We want to be student body president, and we want, all these initiatives are for the students, and we really want the students to feel that. We want them to know that, and we want them to remember that everything we're doing is for them. Like, the internal stuff will come and we'll deal with it as it goes. But as long as we don't lose sight of the students, I hope to see the initiatives at least get the wheel turning. I think. As a student government guy, I hope that doesn't come across wrong at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah, no.
Trust me, I'm the first person to criticize student government. I've been in it.
Yeah, just. Not losing sight in what the goal is. Because, I said, again, in the debate last night, we all have a common goal here. We all just want to make LSU better. And as long as we keep doing that and we keep the students in mind, I think we can't go wrong, honestly.
Has there been a time in your experience, it sounds like what you're talking about is, once people get into these positions, they get caught up in all of these things, right? Mm-hmm. They're asked to go to this event, they're asked to go to this thing, they're asked to go to this thing, they're asked to do this. There's this issue that comes up, there's this issue that comes up, and maybe they lose sight of the goal, right? They get so caught up in the individual game plans that they lose track of where the end zone is,
Big
right?
picture, yeah, exactly.
And so is there anything in your life so far where you feel like, you've taken an idea and implemented it even through when a whole bunch of stuff came up in between?
I think just getting this thing off the ground.
Yeah.
That, of course, first thing came off my head. But, you've ran a campaign. There's steps that come in every day. Every day it's something else.
It's hard.
I used to joke about it. I was like, oh, my God, what's new? But I think that, just getting this off the ground and, we started late. We started in, maybe December, we started late.
Yeah.
And, just getting where we are, getting the feedback and the support that we're getting starting this late has been huge. It's been so thankful for it.
Yeah, I will say, for everyone listening, it's traditional for campaigns to start planning about a year ahead of time.
Yeah.
So that's surprising to hear that been since December, and that's that was another kind of question I had is what's been the most unexpected part so far? Right now you're in the thicket of it, right? You're in active campaign week. You're right in the middle. But from the time you said, let's run this campaign to actually now doing it, what's been something that people just don't expect about doing something of this size with this much money and this many people? What's something you've seen that's just kind of blown you away with how the process is so far while you're in the thick of it?
Yeah, I think it's just some people. I think it's just the way that some people really want to help, and then some people just don't want to help at all. It's it's amazing to go student from student. Some people really are all about it, and then some people are like, oh no, that's not really my thing. I think that's beautiful. I think that just shows kind of the diverse amount of students that are the diverse personalities we have on campus. It's just to show some people really want to get involved, but some people might not like student government. They'd rather stick to their thing, or stick to their own guns. Mm-hmm. And I think that's great. That's of course, we can't force people to do stuff. I think that's great.
I've always called it, you got to know who your 3 a.m.ers, right? Who's the people you can call at 3 a.m. and say, hey, we need this, and they're actually going to pick up the phone and help.
I like that.
Versus who's just there doing the thing, right?
100%.
And then who just wants nothing to do with it, right? And that, kind of also brings up another question. You're talking about student government and getting that message out to students. And I think one of the challenges that people have observed is, there's a lot of students on this campus that genuinely might care less. Mm-hmm. And they don't realize that, it's just student government. It's just maybe people padding their resumes and trying to do all this, playing politics instead of actually getting stuff done, right? Yeah. How do you think we break through the kind of, that's just student government? Because then once they actually learn about what it is, there's something in it for almost everyone, right?
100%.
Whether it's funding for your student organization,
Exactly.
whether it's improving the potholes, whether it's like all these things, there's something in it for everyone. How do you think we get past to the apathetic part of student organization that might see these tents and go, nah, they do that every year, who cares?
Yeah.
How do you think we break through those students?
I think that's a great point because I mean, me, I was an outsider in student government, and now I've like worked my way, and I've seen, I've talked to people and see what they do like day to day, and it's like, wow, they do so much effort, and they don't get the congratulations and the pat on the back that they probably that they really deserve. I mean, I just wanted to point that out, but I think the way you break through to that is just the transparency. You know what I mean? Like, we talk about transparency. I mean, like, getting the word out about, the great stuff that student government does. And I think that, let's go into one of our policies that goes into that, is we wanted to do a council on Greek relations. I mean, I'm Greek. I mean, I know that Greek they don't really, I'm not sure if they really, like, it's a huge organization, and they always have the spotlight on them. But it's not about that. I think it's more about spreading the student government stuff into the Greek life, because I think that, both organizations do such great things. They really do. I mean, like, two biggest orgs on campus. I think that it would do a whole lot of good for this university if they were meshed together more. I think it really does. Putting the good stuff that student government does and bringing it to the Greek life community, and then vice versa, doing the great stuff that Greek life does and bringing that to the SG community, and kind of opening the gates. Because I think both get a bad rap from each other for really no reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people in student government want nothing to do with Greek life, and maybe even want to disband it.
Yeah.
But some people in Greek life don't care about student government. Like
maybe want to disband it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I think that it would be such an asset to LSU to have both going on all cylinders.
And so how would you respond to someone in student government that says, in the 1930s, almost all of student government was Greek life, and since then, even though we have less Greek life involved in student government, we still have most of the people in power. I mean, whether you have the current president who's Greek life, whether you have the current vice president who's Greek life, whether you have the current speaker of the Senate who's Greek life, right? How would you respond to someone that says, maybe it's good that it's been opened to people outside of Greek life, and compared to, like, if all the current leadership is Greek life, what more steps do we have to take to have good relations without excluding the rest of campus?
That's a fair point, but I think we wouldn't really be taking away the spots. We would just be kind of adding a circuit, like another board almost, like just kind of like a bridge, just a bridge. It wouldn't be like anything other than just like this is what we're doing. Like, have a meeting once a month and just be like, this is what we're doing. Oh, this is what my chapter is doing. Oh, this is what my chapter is doing. Oh, that's great. Let me see how we can help you in student government. Oh, let me see how Greek life can get people, to these events, to these programming events, stuff like that.
Yeah. Building bridges of communication.
Exactly.
And that's just one entrance group that you see that could benefit a lot from increased communication.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's so many other things that, we haven't really thought out much yet, but there's so many other ways that we could, like, do stuff like that. I mean, you could have a diversity council like that as well. But I mean, there's just so many ways that you can do that. Yeah,
no doubt. Increased communication is almost never a bad thing. Cool. So, one other question I had. So you mentioned how in December, right, you kind of decide, okay, I'm going to do this, right? Yeah. And you're, sophomore, not involved in SG, right? And yet it turns out that, on your campaign is, a good amount of people from different things, both people that are currently in student government, both people that are not, people from a couple different student organizations around campus. Yeah. How did you pull that group together to organize this so quickly and, like, reach those different constituencies?
I think that, honestly, being in Greek life has helped because it opened the doors to a lot more, like, social people, like social settings where I got to meet people and form connections. Like, a bunch of people on my team are in Greek life, and that's just because I've known them, like, through exchanges and stuff like that. And I just kind of told them, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And they were like, that's a really good idea. I can get on board with that. And I think that's just kind of how it goes. It's kind of like a snowball effect. Once you get one, you get two. And when you get two, you get four. You'd be surprised at how that works.
Yeah. So just kind of someone knew someone, pulled someone else on, pulled someone else on, pulled someone else on, and here we are today?
I think that's just a testament to how great our message is. Because people can really get behind it. People are passionate about it. Because they're passionate about our student government. They're passionate about student government, and they want to see student government succeed. Yeah. And they think that, the best way for student government to succeed is for, or what we want to happen.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you talk about, people connecting with your message. I'm always curious because I like talking about it, and I think it's really interesting. How did you end up coming up with your name and of your campaign and the colors and all that stuff? Can we get some of the backstory of where that came from?
Yeah. So me and Amelia, my vice president, we were talking, and we were like, we got to come up with a name. We got to come up with a name. And we're like, what we're trying to do is, like, bring, passion, bring, all this. And we came up with Ignite. And we were like, man, that sounds like an AAU basketball team. Like, we can't be doing that. And then
a little bit of arson on campus here.
Yeah. I mean, so then we were like, no, we're going to ditch that. And we talked it over some more times. And we're like, you know what? I think Energize. And we settled on, we were like, had like a whole board and everything. And then we said Energize. And then we were like, Energize. Yeah, we like that. And so we went with Energize. I think it's great. Yeah. Colors, they just go great together. I mean, blue and gold, can't really beat that.
State colors.
State colors, true. Yeah, there you go. Loving Louisiana. Yeah. I mean, I think they just look great together.
Gotcha. So just pick two colors that go well together, and that the goal is to bring new energy in, and so Energize.
And it works, gold, Energize, lightning bolt, stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, wait, can you say that again?
So, like, gold, and then we were like, oh, like, like Energize, and then we were like, oh, wait, lightning bolt,
Okay.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that one of y'all's main symbols is like the fleur-de-lis. Is that mostly just harkening back to Louisiana history, or is there some other connection to the fleur-de-lis you have?
Yeah, I mean, Louisiana, New Orleans. Me and Amelia are both from New Orleans. We really, we really love our city. And, we really love our state also. But being from New Orleans, you just have a special tie to New Orleans. At least for me. I think I don't know if I'd want to live anywhere else when I'm older.
Yeah.
I love that place. I love the Saints. I love the Pelicans. I really love the Pelicans. But, I love the food. I love the culture. But, I mean, again, I started off the debate saying I really love the people. The people made me into who I am. The Southern, like just the care that they give for other people is unlike no other.
Yeah. You mentioned, like our ROTC program and supporting that and, Greek life a lot. And one question that I did have that I always think is really interesting is, you see among, especially the Greek community, there's this camaraderie, there's this fellowship, there's this, like, even if you don't know someone, if you're in Greek and you hear, oh, they're from this other house, right? Mm-hmm. There's like an instant, like, all right, I'm going to help, we're sailing in the same direction, feeling that I've only saw during my 2 years in like Air Force ROTC, right? That you get that kind of military, you're going through the trenches together, and so you kind of build this camaraderie. What do you think in Greek life creates that kind of, that kind of camaraderie, that fellowship, that rowing in the same direction, even if we disagree on the details? So what do you think creates that? And do you think that can be like used in like student government or even LSU in general? Yeah.
I mean, that's true. That is a very good correlation between the two. I think the great thing about Greek life is the kind of rules the expectations that it puts on itself. Okay. I mean, like, no other place. There probably is other places, but in my eyes, no other place brings together the academics. You got to keep this above this GPA to go to this event that you really want to go to, or you're going to be going to an exchange with these guys and these girls. And you're like, oh, this is great. I'm meeting all these new people. Freshman year in college is like unlike no other. The doors are wide open. You're meeting so many new people. You're experiencing so many new things, and I think that that might be a big reason too, is just like Greek life. You go in freshman year, you go, you're just so excited, and it's just a lot of things happening at once, maybe.
So well, and you mentioned like accountability, right?
Oh yeah.
Everyone knows their standards, and so when you know someone from that community, they're held to the same standard, and so
Very
there's
true.
a set of
just like
prerequisite,
100%.
prerequisite things that you can kind of assume of them because it comes with the standards of the organization.
100%.
And so, would you be fair that kind of environment of accountability can be improved on within student government?
Yeah, 100%. You want to keep, the people that represent you. You want them to be in high standing. You want them to be, stand-up people with good character. And I think that's true. You find that in ROTC. You'll find that in Greek life. And I've never been to a Senate meeting, but I can tell you that most of everyone I've met so far has been a great character in student government. Yeah. I think that just shows that,
Yeah. Well, one of the challenges of leadership I find is holding people accountable. It's never fun, right?
That's true.
And but maybe it's necessary to create a good environment and a good culture for everyone.
That's true. No, and you can see that at LSU too. I mean, LSU is not the easiest place to get into. You know what I'm saying? Everybody here works hard on their grades. Everybody here works hard to be the best student that they can be. And I think people at LSU, see that. You got a game day.
Yeah.
Whoever that is, that's your best bud, whoever you're sitting next to. You know what I'm saying? You're cheering for the same team.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No doubt. Well, we're almost out of time, and I know you've got more campaign things to go do. So I'll kind of round out with this last question that I'm asking to both candidates, which is, the leader of any organization like student government sets the vision of the organization, right? Sets the standards, sets the goals, right? What is the final message you want students who are still deciding who to vote for to hear? Mm-hmm. If you were in their ear right before they went to cast your vote, what would be that vision? What would you tell them?
I would say that I envision like an LSU that is a home to all, and I think the only place where you can find a home is in the organizations that you're in. And I think those organizations need to be fostered. I think they need to be brought up. And I think that I would like to let them know that they always have a seat at our table. You know what I'm saying? Like I said in the debate also, open door policy. I think every president does it, but I really want to harp on that. I'm so down. I want to talk to students. I want students to know that I'm there for them and anything they need. I will point them to the right direction to go to. I mean, whatever they need, I would be there for them. And I think that's just a great thing. But yeah, my vision is just for the students to feel like they have a great place at home.
No doubt.
Here at LSU.
No doubt, man. Well, best of luck. I know this is a stressful week for you, so best of luck.
Thank you,
I hope all your plans go as planned. They never do, by the way. But I hope your plans go as planned, and that nothing bad comes up. That this is a really clean election cycle, as it currently is. I'm actually been amazed by how friendly everyone is.
I think that's a testament to both me and John Michael. We've done a great job of just that we harped on that from the beginning. Was that whatever happens, we're gonna do this the right way. As stand-up men.
And so, best of luck, man.
Thank you, man.
Good talking to you.
Good talking to you.
Now a discussion with John Sweat. Hey, John. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you.
I know you just came off of a tough day of campaigning.
Yep.
Well underway. So thank you for taking the time to come here, and hopefully we'll have a good discussion to hopefully let the student body know who you are, where you come from, and what you stand for.
Of course.
So there's going to be a longer introduction before this. I'm going to film something kind of talking about the place of this. But do you just want to go ahead and give a brief background or however long background you want of kind of who you are, where you come from?
Yeah. So at LSU, I'm a triple. Well, my name is John Michael Sweat. I'm a triple degree in political theory, sociology, and psychology. I also have an associate's degree in biochemistry from my high school. I am from Louisiana originally. I from somewhat of a military family, somewhat of a nursing family. So I have both of those backgrounds in me. I've moved quite a lot as a kid, but I've always lived in Louisiana. LSU, what am I trying to say? I was either going to come to LSU or UL for college. I chose LSU, obviously, and I'm very grateful for that decision. And I have a number of leadership experiences here, such as I'm the president of RHA currently, the Residence Hall Association. I am the director of academic affairs for student government. I'm involved in a number of student organizations. I also have an internship at the Public Defender's Office right now because I care a lot about law. And I'm just generally, I've always been quite involved on campus, I'd say. I have a lot of experience in terms of meeting with administrators, writing bills, passing things through Senate, stuff like that. And that's a little bit about me, I'd say.
Definitely. So did you go to high school in Louisiana? Or
yeah.
Where at?
I went to this place called the Early College Academy in Lafayette. It's also it's like with South Louisiana Community College. So you get a degree. You finish high school 2 years, and then you get a degree in whatever an associate's while you're there.
Gotcha. You said a little bit of military, a little bit of healthcare. Do you want to explain kind of what that means?
Yeah. Well, my dad's in the military. He has been since I was born. He actually recently retired. That's how long he's been in it. My entire life, literally. And my mother is a nurse practitioner, or I think practitioner, maybe just nurse. I forget what the delineations are. She did a CRN certification recently. But she received an associate's degree. My dad did not go to college, so technically I am a first-generation college student because it's 4 years or more. And I have a good bit of I've moved a lot, is what I'm trying to say, because I was either with my mom or my dad through my childhood. I was split between their houses, and my father moved a lot, decent amount military, and then my mother moved a lot just because, I don't know, it was tough on finances a lot of the time. So I have both those experiences and I have a lot of moving experience as a kid.
Gotcha. And you mentioned you had this interest in law and with your current internship. Is that kind of the goal, go to law school eventually?
Yeah, I want to go to law school after LSU, either to become an environmental lawyer or a public defender. I think those two things have interested me for a long time.
Gotcha. So you mentioned both your role in RHA and student government. Can you just walk through kind of, I guess, the roles you've served in student government, some of your experience there, and then what you've done as RHA president?
Yeah. So in student government, I was in freshman leadership council.
Okay. As a member or like running it?
As a member.
Okay.
Yeah. I was in the baby blue group. That was my freshman year. One of the first things I did. And then I was just senator. I ended up filling a vacancy. I also ran for a seat later on. But I was a senator for HSS for a year and a half, I think. I passed quite a few bills through there, one of which has gone to Faculty Senate, maybe two, actually.
Which one was that?
The Faculty Senate resolution to add student voting members to Faculty Senate, essentially. Yes. I'm still working on it, but it's been through one of the committees. Mm-hmm. And then after being a senator, I transitioned to exec after elections with Innovate's campaign, and I became the director of academic affairs. And that's what I've been working on. I've been working on academic policies, one of which, a key thing, is that next semester all students will have Grammarly Premium access for free on their LSU accounts. It usually takes a while, but luckily I was able to get the university to say, they were okay with the funding of that because they were already trying to get some accounts for administrators, and there's just some talks over whether or not they're including AI processes. If not, then we're good, and if so, then they'll have to figure that out by next semester. So we'll just see. But those accounts should be live next semester and next year overall. So that's a good accomplishment, I'd say.
And so we just got the university to fund that?
Yeah, it was administration.
Oh wow!
We didn't even need student government to do it. A lot of the time, I find that if this is what people, I think, fail to realize a lot of the time in these leadership positions. Is you don't really need to pass bills for a lot of things. Mm-hmm. If you just talk to the right administrators, they'll tend to be amicable to what you have to say. And sometimes they're already working on stuff you have to say.
So just out of curiosity, because that just sounds like a win-win-win on all accounts for the Grammarly initiative, right? Because we got administration to pay for it. They're agreeing to do it. Can you just kind of walk through that timeline from the time the idea you got to where we're at right now and how you got that outcome? Well,
in freshman year, from the origin, I always thought that it would be cool to have Grammarly access at the university because at SLCC they had free access, and I was able to use it the entirety of my time there, and it's just really useful. It's a writing assistant. It spell checks for you. I find that useful because I write a lot of essays, and I find it useful for any student who writes any amount of papers or emails or anything like that.
I use it in my email.
Exactly. Exactly. And then I, more recently, as the director of academic affairs, I started working on it. I asked director of academic affairs for the university, Dr. Bach. I believe she's either director or some kind of chair of academic affairs. I forget the exact title. She used to be faculty senate president or director. Sorry. And I just talked with her about it. I ended up meeting with, I believe, IT director Clay Benton, and we just talked about use of, I think, IT allocation funds and tech fees and stuff like that. And they were talking about how they were getting administrator accounts for Grammarly, and I was like, okay, what about student accounts? And they were like, maybe we can include that. And they kind of looked into it. They looked into AI components. We met a few times. We talked about it. Faculty Senate discussed it a little bit. And it was as simple as the suggestion, really. I didn't really have to do all that much for it just because it was something that they were amenable to, which is why I think it's important to talk to administrators because if you just ask and have a conversation, you sometimes can get a very good outcome out of it.
Right. Sometimes just saying the right thing in the right room at the right time can produce an outcome that a ton of toil and resolutions and stuff can't get to.
Yeah, exactly.
No doubt. So that was a big initiative in student government. But one of your other leadership positions that you mentioned in your intro was RHA president. Can you go over how you got into being RHA president and kind of what you've done and some of the leadership lessons you've learned?
So I started in freshman year. Same thing with student government. I ran for community council president of my hall, LaVille, and won. You plan small events there. You do little stuff. But it was big for me at the time because it was one of the first things I had done like that. And we planned events throughout the year. They went well, as all. I mean, it was nothing crazy or anything, just like an Easter party or something like that. And we bought things to the building. Like we bought a speaker that future generations can use and still use in that hall. We bought vacuum cleaners that students could use, just general stuff like that. It was mostly money spending, less initiative stuff. And then they reached out to me because I was a very active community council member at the time. The e-board reached out to me and said they'd really like me to run for vice president. I was like, wow, that's a pretty big role. But, I'm willing to try it. And I ran, and I won. And I became the vice president of RHA because they had asked me to, essentially. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. And then essentially just worked on a lot of community council policy because I was over every community council at that point. I kind of got into that larger role. I didn't do a ton of policy then because that was the president mostly running that stuff, but I just assisted with whatever I could there. And we ran events as usual. But then this year specifically, I've tried to overhaul. So I ran for president, right? Got it. I tried to overhaul the system we have for legislation overall, and we passed some of the first successful bills in I think like 4 years.
Yeah, ever since
something
COVID,
like that. Yeah,
it shut down right. So I had a bill that was supposed to be going through RHA, my first year in it, and it stopped because we had to go home for COVID.
Yeah, and then they never really, that never really happened again until I decided to start working on it again and sending stuff. Was creating committees. So we're working on a few pieces of legislation, something about like gender inclusive housing, some about like including certain like products within residence halls, a little bit about lighting, but that's a little bit harder than the other stuff is, obviously. But also in RHA, one of the things I'm proud of that I've done is we've increased attendance by like quadruple the amount that it used to be. I think, just because I think that we've done some good outreach this semester, and we made sure to make the community councils. We have a new communication system. Just a lot of things that we overhauled. The Constitution, for example, we changed a lot of constitutional provisions to be more simple and sensible. We kind of just like over the summer, I just went through a lot of things at the organization. I'm like, this doesn't work. Let's rework this. This doesn't work. Let's rework this. This doesn't work. Let's rework this. And it ended up being pretty successful overall. We still have a long way to go to be like a stellar institution. Once again, I think we used to be the biggest organization on campus. Now we're like one of the biggest, but not the largest student government is. But we're on the way to becoming like super big again, which is nice. And we're holding events as usual, Crawfish Boil. We were able to get funding for that, and also the price has gone down a little bit, so we're good for that. And things are going pretty well overall for RHA now.
So you mentioned that part of the success of getting people out to these events was the new communication system.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So we used to use like GroupMe's and Discords and stuff like that, and it wasn't very effective because we didn't use it in a structured way. And this year, I saw student government and how it used Slack, and I made a Slack thing. I created, or one of my assistants, or one of my director of administration, created the channels in it, and like various different places to type in it, essentially stuff like that. And it's really just a group chat. But what we did was whenever we had the onboarding at the very beginning of the year, we made sure that every single member would download the app and make sure to check it. Like we gave them training on the stuff instead of just giving them something to look at every once in a while. Then we made sure that everyone that's new is added. We made sure that people actually like use it and talk in it over the course of our meetings. And so like just having something that people pay attention to more than email or more than something else, like it's essentially like texting them at this point, has made it to where we're a lot more communicative and just better at working together because everyone sees what everyone else is saying a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the hardest parts of any large organization is just ensuring proper communication.
No, it's really difficult a lot of the time.
There's a group I'm working with 5 students, and like there's been communication issues, right? And
I mean,
so scale that up
I'm not going to pretend we haven't had communication issues. Like it's hard to communicate with that many people at once. I think we have like maybe 300 something members right now, and that's just like staff people. That's not like including the students who go to our events and stuff like that. So, we've got a lot of people to work with. And communication can be difficult sometimes, but we've done better overall, and I'm hoping we can continue to do that as we transition to the next board and so on, and I'll help all them do that.
Yeah. And so over your tenure as RHA president, is there something that you've learned about leadership in general that maybe you didn't know coming into the role?
Definitely. Mostly about just being very careful and intentional about how I speak with administrators and staff. About how I disagree with them, because sometimes I have disagreed with residential life, and I've had to be very intentional and appropriate in certain ways about it to not offend them, but also to make it clear that like I don't agree with this policy you're doing. So I think mostly it's developed my ability to talk with administrators. Same with director of academic affairs. Those two things at the same time, I've just really gotten to know like a lot of the core staff at LSU, the directors of certain departments, and I've worked with them a lot, and I think that is it's helped me communicate better overall in a corporate and such a high level setting, I guess, that students normally don't even have any access to.
Yeah, almost effective disagreement.
Yeah.
Right. Of when you're advocating for 10 issues, right? The chance that you agree with administration is very low on all 10 issues. But if you're at least able to disagree in a way that you can still advance some of them and make progress on some of the others, that skill of effective disagreement is certainly important, for both roles.
I'll usually pick the most likely one that I think they're ready to pick up on, and I'll word it in a way that they're more amenable to, so that we can start working on something that works for both of us and the students involved in whatever that disagreement is.
Yeah, and so it's interesting you said normally pick like the most likely one and then just try to move the needle on that. So I guess how do you view the difference in philosophy between kind of picking the hardest thing and trying to make progress on that versus picking the maybe like next step thing and trying to get that done. How do you kind of view that difference in philosophy when it comes to leadership?
Well, you got to take the easy wins whenever you can, right?
Yeah.
It's how you make incremental progress, and that's very important. I'm also a big fan of I don't want to say radical progress, but radical is a bad word. Large scale
shaking
progress,
the boat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of that kind of thing. It's just much more difficult to do.
Right.
I think both at the same time is good, and I think that as students, our advocacy position is very powerful, and that's where those large scale things come into play. And like the things we can physically snap our fingers and do, those are the small scale incremental things that we can ask about, that we can do ourselves.
Right.
But the big things are like the advocacy side of things. For example, if I disagree with a state government policy, because an administrator cannot do that.
Yeah.
If the dean of students disagrees with what the president says vehemently and says, "I'm not doing this," okay, you're fired.
Right.
Like you don't have a job anymore. You don't have a livelihood
Incentives
anymore.
matter. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they can't fire me. This is literally what administrators have told me, multiple people, multiple times. I'm not going to say who they are because I don't want them to get in trouble or anything.
Right.
But they're saying, like, John, you can disagree with these things, and you should do so loudly because, like, I cannot. Students are a necessary part of advocacy for the university, even, like, above administrators sometimes, just because we have more freedom to do. I mean, they can't. They literally
retaliate.
They can't.
Yeah.
They can't retaliate unless we're like being violent or
Right.
something like that. It's impossible.
It's against state law.
Yeah,
to
exactly,
retaliate.
and federal law.
Right. Huh. And so, you mentioned that ability to get things done, that ability to move the needle, and kind of everything like that. That plays into one of the things is we've both been in student government for a little bit, and we've both seen a couple of presidents come and go.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's pretty fair to say it's very rare to see a president actually deliver on any of the things on their push card.
That's correct.
Both campaigns are handing out push cards.
Correct.
So what are some of the reasons why you think in the past executives have failed to deliver on the promises they make to students on those cards? And how do you think you're going to be able to overcome that to actually deliver for everything that you're saying you're going to do?
There's like 2 or 3 reasons. One is because they inundate their push cards with like a billion different things that they tell students they're going to get done because they think it's effective if students see 1,000 ideas at once. I disagree with that philosophy. I think it's better to choose a few things to do and make sure that they're elaborated and enumerated and that students can digest them rather than giving them a lot of things. Because even on a voting scale, I don't think that people can understand what you're telling them if you give them a card with like 1,000 words on it, right? And then second of all, I don't think that campaign promises in the past have actually been the priority of the executives in getting done. Like I feel like they had ideas what they wanted to do that they didn't think would be necessarily like these vote-getting policies. And so they wanted to put things that were very popular and good to do often on the push cards, but like these are very difficult things to do often that they're talking about, and these aren't like easily done. So they're not very
the things that
simply.
sound good, even if they know it's never
Exactly.
gonna happen.
Like for example, like Tiger, what's it called? Like a game day bus system. I think I've heard that a lot of times. It's like that's never happening. Or like a new parking lot. It's like how are you going to do that?
The golf carts for students.
Exactly. That's just like certain things are just not going to occur.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll be effective in our campaign promises because day one, literally the first thing I would do on inauguration is figure out, okay, for these 8 things, we enumerated 8, who am I contacting? Like, even if I had other things that I would like to do, I want to make sure that those things are done first, or at least started.
Right.
So who am I contacting? What administrators am I sending emails to? Emails are sent first day to get these meetings started, to get, okay, where do we have to go for this? Some might take a few weeks to do. Okay, done. Some might take a long time to do. But as long as they're clear in their progression to the end goal of that policy by the time I'm out of office, that's my goal, then I think we're good because we've at least worked towards them, even if they're not possible within a year. Even if we find out for some reason this is going to take a lot longer than expected, we at least have worked towards them. And I hope to have them all on a checklist done by the end of the entire term. And once again, day one, these will always be my priorities, and these are things that I'll work with my directors on, my assistant directors on, but I won't just hand these off to directors. If I have promised something, I am going to personally work on that and deliver it, which is also something that I feel like has not been done much because things are put onto directors instead of, like, I feel like the president can work on some policy, It's like a lot of these people are afraid of going to Senate and asking for a bill to be written. It's like, why?
Yeah.
It's not unconstitutional. It's allowed.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're not doing that. I would also work with the other branches a lot more to get the things I want done. Like I would ask specifically to specific senators, hey, can you write this for me? And let's work on that. I don't know what I'd ask judicial because I don't want to say they don't do much, but like what am I going to ask them to do? But senators I'd work with very often.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it reminds me, kind of what you're saying of a quote that I know I've used a couple times in student government, which is something is better than nothing and progress is better than perfect. Or, progress is preferable to perfect because perfect is never attainable.
No, it's not possible to be perfect.
That as long as you can move the needle in the positive direction, that's what we should be striving for.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. And so the main ways that you think that you're going to be able to differentiate and actually deliver is through using the experience you have to contact the right people and go through the right processes through day one to actually effectively deliver it.
Yeah, precisely. And that's what I think some other people might lack is because, if you haven't made these connections, you're not even going to know where to start with administrators. And it's not simple a lot of the time. You're not going to always contact certain directors for certain issues. It may be actually very complex about who specifically you should talk to.
Right.
Especially if you need to go to faculty senate for anything. If you don't have experience with the Senate at all, there's no shot you're going to be effective in terms of talking with faculty members about specific policies. I just don't think that's possible.
Shout out to Calvin Felt, who's found that out the hard way.
True.
But he's made some good change in the way. So I did want to ask, I always find it really interesting, in the height of campaign season, everything going on. So obviously y'all are in power, right?
Yeah.
How did you come to decide on that name and the colors and everything around that?
I'm colorblind, first of all, so I did not come up with our colors. The other folks on my campaign all came up with them because they were visually appealing, and they also, I think it was we liked national parks and their message generally, and this is how they operate and are. And I think our color is very similar to national park colors, if I'm not mistaken, or national forestry or something like that. Once again, colorblind, so I'm not the expert on the whole color issue. But Empower specifically, we chose very intentionally because our goal is to make students a more powerful force for advocacy on campus and to give students who don't traditionally have access to resources and to student government itself access so that they can have a platform for themselves to speak and to be heard and to be empowered, is the word.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of it's almost reminiscent of the reach, reach each student, the emphasis on each student, which is it's interesting. One of the things I commented on, one of the things I've commented on throughout the election season is how impressed I am of how kind of nice everyone's being.
Yeah,
traditionally in election seasons, you get some, for lack of a better term, poop throwing, and it seems like everyone's been really amicable this year, and maybe part of it is because what both the campaigns are saying is we just need to reach more students and we need to, in this case, empower every student after we've reached them. Yeah. Which is, it's interesting that the message is very similar, and hopefully that means the intention is also similar. Yeah. It's interesting. So you mentioned you're colorblind. I know in the debate you mentioned how you got a parking ticket because you were colorblind.
Yeah.
What led to that? And were you able to appeal it?
No. So what happened was, I parked on a little curb in front of East Campus Apartments, which is colored yellow. Yeah, it's very faded. Yeah, and it was dark first of all, so even someone with normal vision wouldn't be able to see this. But I can't even tell a difference between the yellow curb and the normal curb typically. Huh. So with the no parking, lettering completely worn off by the weather, it was any other curb. There was cars parked behind and in front of me. I was like, okay, I'll park here and go inside. Have a good night. And I come out, parking ticket. I'm like, what? And they say it's a no parking sign. I'm like, where? And they say the yellow curb. I was like, I can't see that. I'm colorblind. This is an ADA issue. And they said, no, it's not. It says no parking. I'm like, it's worn off. That's just not true. This is an ADA issue. And they said, pay the parking ticket. I was like, okay. Can't really do anything. It's added to my fee bill now. I can't really do anything. Yeah.
And so is that partial, some of the inspiration for some of the work you all want to do with parking tickets?
Yes. I think your own experiences typically, you think about them. Obviously, I wasn't like, oh, I got a parking ticket, now I have a vendetta. That it's just like, oh, this is something that I've kind of experienced, and I think a lot of it students have experienced. Might as well, try to do some work on it because I feel like a lot of people have the same experiences that I do. Not specifically with that, but with just getting BS parking tickets.
Yeah, and so we talked about kind of your approach to successfully achieving initiatives. Mm-hmm. What's one of the initiatives that y'all are pushing for that you think, if you were to hold up on a banner, the one initiative you're super passionate about, what would that be?
I really like the FLC expansion. I could say the same about, I really love all of the policies. We have a document of 40-something that we have and are working on and have come up with and want to do. Mm-hmm. We just chose these 8 because they were the most stellar examples. So I like all of them. I know that's a cliche, duh, you like all of them, you picked them. But the FLC expansion is it's how I would do the things I'm saying, empower students. That's the mechanism by which we do that, chiefly, at least at first. because we would essentially take FLC and it wouldn't be Freshman Leadership Council anymore. I don't know what it would be called, some kind of leadership thing. I always come up with a name still. But it would include upperclassmen, lowerclassmen. We try to get transfer students involved, international students. We try to get all types of RSOs involved. Just people who are typically not I don't want to say allowed in, but whenever you look at FLC as a transitional process,
can you
into
explain
SG,
to everyone kind of what the current system is and the problems?
Yeah, there's an interview process which I have a problem with because FLC it's large, but it's fairly small. What is it? Only 80 people maximum, if I had to guess. It's not a large, it's super big amount of people. And it's these freshmen from across campus after interviews are select. Like they submit applications, there's interviews, and there's individuals that are selected.
Yeah, like 300 people apply.
Exactly, and it's 80 or 70 that get in.
Yeah.
And it's if we ask ourselves, what is the goal of FLC? Supposedly, it's to try to develop leadership and to make people into better advocates, leaders, communicators, networkers, etc. But I don't understand why we're taking people who might not have any experience at all and evaluating them based on their prior experiences so that we can give them something that is going to give them experiences.
Right.
That it doesn't make any sense to me, and that seems very gatekeepy.
Yeah.
Like we're only taking the students who already have the privilege of having access to leadership beforehand.
Student government for the students we select.
Yeah, exactly. What happens to the students that don't have any access to leadership?
Yeah.
We don't give them anything to work on, and now it's just a loop. It's a cyclical thing. They're like, if they don't have leadership experience, how are they going to get leadership experience? We need to be that start. Mm-hmm. You can see this in a lot of places, like even in the job economy. It's like if you don't have a job, how are you going to get a job? It's
right.
That doesn't make sense.
10 years experience needed. Oh, yeah. 10 years experience needed entry level job.
Exactly.
What? Yeah.
We just need to be the start of people's leadership development, and we need to expand our access to it so that students that don't typically have resource access are able to create resources for themselves, because now they'll have networks. Now they'll have communication skills, leadership skills. They'll be able to join other organizations. They'll be able to advocate and defend themselves. It would just make them stronger, and that's good because now they can use those skills in other places in life and potentially escape the circumstances which made them, quote unquote, bad candidates in the first place. That's what we should be doing as student government, is building people up, not like saying, oh yeah, you can come into my club. It's not supposed to be a selective club. It's supposed to be a place for all people to develop themselves, and I feel like this is one way we can do that.
Definitely. I mean, I know the current focus of FLC is, there's a lot of kind of teaching about what student government is, right? They have their Senate day, they have their exec day, they have their judicial day. But if we truly want it to be, I've joked before, I resonate with this because I've joked before that, it's for freshmen, but they don't do a lot of leadership and they're barely a council. So, so how you talk about leadership development, right? How do you take a group of, say, if you let everyone in, right, say 250 students, how do you develop them as leaders? And is it still focused on student government, or is it focused on something else, maybe like more leadership development, or kind of what's that final goal, ideal vision for what the organization would be of FLC?
Obviously, we'd want them to join student government at some point because that would be that would be nice. But being in that would already make them a part of student government. That you wouldn't have to feel as if you need to join exec or senate or judicial to be a part of it, because you are a part of it as that. And essentially, I think that they would work on making their own legislation in which they could work with senators on writing. They could do the jobs of the other branches without actually being in them, essentially. They could help and assist with event coordination, for example. And I think overall, the main use of it and the main goal would be kind of opinion gathering. I feel as if, and we need to work these details out, but this is how I'd imagine it. These people would meet every so often, and they would try to plan events together and legislation similar to what FLC does. It would just include a lot more people, and then besides that, they would come together and try to think of if you're from X student population, what do you think this population is suffering from? And you can try to analyze that, and all these opinions would come together, and they try to just see. It'd essentially be opinion polling, kind of. They'd see what is occurring, because we have the legislative branch, which makes solutions to problems, but we don't really have a place in SG where we get the problems, the information about the problems themselves. And I think that's a large part of what they would be helpful for, is deliberating together and coming together to decide what is an issue that we really need to tackle here. And so they could set policy agendas. They could work on just general goals for the organization, because they'd be a massive voice for what we should do next, kind of, and they'd be able to feed senators ideas work on their own things themselves, that kind of thing, if that all makes sense.
So maybe like more of an emphasis on mentorship
Yes.
as well.
Yeah,
Or like the people that are currently
100%.
in, like
Yes.
matching them and things like
and
that.
just the fact that they would all be able to communicate with each other, and
Yeah.
also other SG people. They would have buddies, obviously older people that would maybe lead groups. I mean, similar to how it is now. There's group leaders, but it would all just be a lot more intentional, I think, into finding problems and solutions to those problems, rather than just like telling them what SG is.
Yeah.
It would be less emphasis on just this is what Senate does, and more like, okay, you're being a senator for a week. Here you're going to write a bill. You're going to legitimately create legislation and impact the student experience, rather than just learn what this is. Because the best way to learn is through experience, not just being told how to do something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think that's having that open door. Right. It's that's one thing that everyone talks about, reaching more students, but it's like how to actually reach those students and how to create that open door. We talk about transparency and communication.
And by the way, just to bump in, to get more people actually applying to that than are already, I have a lot of experience with that, because I had to revamp the community council application process. And I think what we do is try to get information about it on Moodle pages, if possible, and also in handbooks given to on-campus residents, because at the beginning of every year there's a handbook given to campus residents, and also there's an ROC, what's it called? The RSO handbook. Just those resources we try to add this thing to, so that people could see it the moment they're on campus for the first time, or for the second time or third time, just at the beginning of the year. That's when we want people to see this thing. And maybe able to join out throughout the year. We don't want it to be like FLC, where it's like, okay, you miss a deadline, you're done.
Right.
But we'd use those systems to advertise it, is what I'm trying to say, to make sure that more people are applying and joining.
That's interesting. I mean, I definitely think there is a need for a general leadership development organization on campus that has all the connections and all the resources student government has. And I know recently Campus Life has kind of raised the banner on that, trying to do their leadership development programs, Leadership LSU and other kind of leadership like that. But I definitely think the multiplicative benefits toward a open and successful leadership development program that FLC could be under the offices and connections to student government could really have a huge impact on this campus. So awesome. Well, I could continue could continue all day here, but I know this is the midst of campaign season. I know it's been tough. So we'll just do kind of two more questions. One, we're midway through campaign week. So have you been surprised about anything so far in the campaign? Obviously you went into this with certain expectations of what campaigning has been. You've been on campaigns before, but now being kind of that point of contact running for president, has there been anything throughout this campaign cycle so far that surprised you?
I mean,
that people wouldn't know?
I've just talked to a lot of people. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but the amount of people that have texted me is maybe even 1,000 people that I've personally spoken to, not just in terms of voting, but in terms of just the office and candidacy. And that's just it's a lot of communication to keep up with. It's heavy work. I'm trying to think of anything specifically that surprised me. I can't say much surprised me, because I had a fairly decent idea of, having worked extensively on campaigns before and having talked with the student body president currently about her obligations and her responsibilities in the campaign process generally.
Yeah.
I mean, my vice president was their campaign manager, so it's I had a decent idea there too.
Yeah.
What has surprised me specifically? I guess just the sheer amount of communication I have to do. It was a lot more than I expected. And
wearing down your thumbs.
Yeah. Yeah. And emphasis on social media, I guess. I've never been a big social media guy. I've grown my account by, I think, triple since the start of everything, just by following people and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm not a big fan, honestly. I don't really care that much about posting on Instagram. I don't care about how many likes or followers I have. It's just not one of my priorities. I'd rather focus on, physical impacts to the world rather than posting a social media post. I think all my posts before, somewhat recently, were, me and my girlfriend's anniversaries or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just it's not something I've ever prioritized. I guess that would be my big surprise. It's I got to prioritize this now. And as a person who wants to go into law and possibly politics one day, I'll have to anyway. I got to get used to it. I don't like it very much, but I'll have to learn to love it, I guess, over time if I want to do well. So that's probably what surprised me, is just the emphasis on social media. I understand campaign accounts and stuff, but just I don't want to have to follow 100 people a day every day. It's just it's annoying, but I do it anyway.
Yeah, it's a critical component of modern outreach and communication.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and a question I'm asking to both candidates to kind of finalize things is, the leader of any organization like student government sets the vision for the organization, right? They set the goals, set the vision. And so if you could be in the ear of a voter that's undecided going in to cast their vote on TigerLink, right? Maybe someone that doesn't know who they're voting for, and if you could be in their ear and give them one message, what's your vision for student government LSU, and what would you tell that voter?
I'd tell them that I really just want to widen the scope of access of our organization so that they know what we're doing. They can hold us accountable to what we're doing because people don't know a lot of the time what we're doing, and so that they can join and develop themselves, and that the reason I'm doing this is so that people like them can do what I'm doing one day. It is truly my dream to see students who had no involvement, no ability, no money, no anything before LSU to be able to run for something like student body president and eventually a real political figure one day, solely because they were inspired by someone else or by themselves to start doing great things. And I don't think that kind of action should be gatekept behind money that you have. It shouldn't be gatekept behind experience that you have. You should be able to start building yourself up. As long as you work hard, I think you deserve the opportunity to at least try for these things, and that's just not something that everyone has right now. And I want to deliver that to them. I think.
Absolutely, man. That's a great vision, and I hope that regardless of the outcome of the election, that continue to do that work and continue to try to move this world toward that vision. So appreciate you taking the time out of this busy campaign week to have this conversation, and best of luck. I hope all of your plans go as planned.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Every campaign there's something that comes up, and to both campaigns I just hope that there's no huge disruptions and that everything it's not all going to go as planned, but I hope as much of it goes as planned as possible.
Might be a little rainy this Friday. We'll see how that goes.
Break out the tents.
Yeah.
But thank you, John. Really appreciate it.